right, welcome to the Unprofessionals Podcast. I'm Joshua Sutter, and per usual, I am joined by Nathan Page, and we thought it would be interesting to go through our top 25 NBA players of all time, basically because ESPN did their top, was it 100?
Yeah, they did a top 100, and then like top 10 at each position.
Yeah, so we thought it would be fun. We're not going to do a top 100 because we don't care that much, but a top 25 just because I think we both had a few disagreements, but it's just a fun conversation to have. But first, Nathan, we wanted to talk a bit about the Warriors because, as you said, it seems more likely that they're going to break the Bulls record now rather than not break it.
Yeah, and part of that is like when you get to the All-Star break, you're looking at their record I started looking at the record and thinking, can they do this? I mean, it's halfway through the season, and then you think about it and you're like, it's actually more than halfway through the season. The chances are now, like, based on their record, if they continue on this pace, they could win 75 games. And now, of course, first game after the All-Star break, they lose by 30 to Portland. And Lillard goes off for 50. So that's not promising for the point I'm trying to make. But, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they can break the record?
The problem is that the pace they're at right now is unbelievable. And after the first, I think they started off, 24-0? And then after that, it was still kind of like their pace was at this breakneck speed. And it's like, oh, because this is going to end. It's kind of cute. But it's like you said, we're past the All-Star break now. So we're past the midway point of the season, like by a few games. And the pace hasn't really stopped. It's like they lose one game and then that's it for 10 games or whatever. And it's so if I had to like place, a month's salary on it, I would bet that they don't, because the Spurs with their injury problems now could potentially fade off a little bit. And so maybe the one seed's more secure than it was in the past. And so maybe if they lose one or two and it looks more realistic, they just kind of start resting guys. But the problem is that it doesn't seem like they want to. It seems like all those guys really want to break the record. And so I don't really see them resting players. So the whole Peyton Manning and the Colts used to do that every year. They were like 14-0 or whatever. And then obviously not every year, but that just seems like it happened all the time. They were 14-0 or 13-1, and they just took the last couple weeks off because they had it wrapped up. This Warriors team with Draymond and Steph at the helm don't seem like they're capable of just laying it up for 2 weeks at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's true. That's honestly one of the most likable things about them is we've had teams in the past who like try to pretend like, oh man, we're not really thinking, like even the Heat, whenever they were going on that run, what did they win, like 27 straight in the middle of the season a couple years ago? They all pretend like they didn't care about the streak, or at least that's what they said. And like some of them were a little bit candid, like, we talk about it, but like we're not really worried about that. We're just trying to stay healthy for the postseason. It's like the Warriors are talking about, no, they've admitted, I've heard interviews with Steph and Draymond where they're like, oh, we talk about it, like, we want to do it. And when you get this close, like they're not just 40 games into the season right now. They're 55 games into the season and they're 50-5. That's crazy. Like it's that they only have to win 18 more games. And as long as they only lose 4, they have broken the record. So is that right?
No, your math's way off. Let's not get into the math.
Wait. No, okay, I'm wrong. What is it? What's the number?
Well, I don't know how many...
Sorry. No, I was doing the math wrong last night, too. They're 55 in. They play 82 games. So they have to win how many more games? What am I doing here? They have to win 23 more. What is wrong? I'm sorry.
You're still wrong.
Because they're at 50 wins. They have to win 23 more.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Sorry. I was thinking about something else. They have 28 more games, not 18. Okay. I was a communication major. The point is, they're not that far away from... They're a lot closer than it sounds like. When you get just past the All-Star break, that sounds like, okay, we're at the halfway mark. We're a good ways beyond that. We're 15 games past the halfway mark. So the point is, like, they're really close to this, and so it's not hard to envision them breaking the record.
Yeah, they're incredible. The NBA landscape hasn't changed a ton. The Warriors, Spurs, Thunder, and Cavs are pretty much the 4 teams that we expect to have a shot to win the title, specifically the Warriors and the Spurs. So,
I was going to say, I did tweet last night about because the Clippers and Warriors, every game is incredible. Like, I hope they play in the playoffs just because it would be like the most intense 4-game sweep in playoff history. Every game would go to overtime or have like a 12-0 run to end the game, but the Clippers will lose every game. So
very true. So we won't go over ESPN's. Well, I guess we could take this in like 5 player segments, and we could do like, okay, so ESPN's 25 through 20 was Scottie Pippen at 25, Elgin Baylor at 24, Steph at 23, Kevin Durant at 22, Kevin Garnett at 21, and David Robinson at 20. So, and it would be easier, honestly, if you guys actually enjoy ranking stuff, which you do if you obviously clicked on this, to just pull up ESPN's top 100 players and go to 25 through 20 and then so on as we go on, just to kind of give you guys our opinions on ours. And lists are just kind of fun. So there's literally no like specific purpose in doing this. It's just kind of fun. So why don't you start with your 25 through 20 and then I'll give you mine and we can hash it out.
Okay. So 25 I have... Gosh. Okay, and we need to just like have this quick our qualifier or whatever, disclaimer, whatever you want to call it. We're 22, or I'm 23, and you're what, 21? 20. Gosh, dude. Okay, so I'm 23. Josh is 20. So we don't have a great grasp. Like, I would say we appreciate the fact that Jordan's the greatest of all time, but we don't have like a great grasp on Magic and Bird and like I would even say not even those guys. I would say
lower tier guys like Elgin Baylor. I say lower tier, but like guys like Elgin Baylor or Moses Malone or Julius Erving, Jerry West, those kind of guys.
Right, and like we know that Julius Erving was a legend, but we don't know that we don't know how great Karl Malone is. I can look at his stats and say like, oh, this guy averaged 25 and 11 for his entire career, and that's amazing. But I don't know in context like how great was he? Who can I compare him to today? So that has to be our disqualifier in that like our rankings are going to be different because it's based off of the people we've watched our entire career. And while I have appreciation for the NBA's past and like I feel like I followed it pretty well and I know it okay, like I didn't watch these guys play. Yeah.
With that said, like we didn't get to watch them, but we're still students of the game, so to say. And so like our top 25 isn't just guys we've watched. It's the top 25 all time from our perspective, based off of what we've seen, what we've read, all that stuff. So with that long disclaimer,
yes,
but a necessary one. What are your 25 through 20?
Right. Okay. So we'll go through these and then kind of talk about the ones that stand out, that are like maybe the ones that vary the most from each other and from ESPN. So 25, Chris Paul. 24, Steph Curry. 23, Kevin Durant. 22, David Robinson, and 21, John Stockton, and then, wait, are we just stopping at 21? Yeah, that's 21 through 25 is 5.
This has been the worst. All right, so 25 for me, Zeke, Isaiah Thomas, 24, Steve Nash, 23, Kevin McHale, 22, Elgin Baylor, and 21, John Stockton. So I think the biggest discussion out of between ours and ESPN's is, I mean, I guess you could throw Chris Paul in there, but specifically Steph and Kevin Durant. And for me, I was shocked that ESPN had them in the top 25 before I even saw yours. Yeah. That was the thing that made me really want to do this, because I don't understand why Steph, who has had basically, like, I think we can both agree on this, 1.5 unbelievable years, right? But that's it. So how is he in the top 25 best players of all time, as opposed to guys like your first 5 out, Elgin Baylor, Kevin Garnett, Steve Nash, Scottie Pippen, Jason Kidd? Right. Their peaks may have not been this past 1.5 years of Steph, but for 10 years, those guys were the best of the best.
Yeah, and I really wanted to put Steve Nash and Jason Kidd in mine, because those guys, like, those are the kind of guys that got other people paydays. Like Jason Kidd made Richard Jefferson like a viable NBA player, and it's the same with like Kenyon Martin. And then Steve Nash did that with, Sean Marion and Rajah Bell, guys like that. So like those are the kind of guys that changed the game as far as being a true floor general. So like I wanted them to be in, and Scottie Pippen, like I wanted him to be in, but part of it for me not having them in the top 25 is I'm looking for guys who changed the game. Like and when you either have to put together for me like 10 to 15 years of consistently like all-star level amazing play, or you have to be the kind of player that comes in and changes the game, like you revolutionize the game. And to me, that's why Steph belongs on this list, is because even if his career ends in 2 years, he has changed the game from the perspective that, like, there are kids who go to the gym now who shoot only threes because of Steph. And, like, he is someone who's revolutionized the game in the way that MJ did. Like, everybody wanted to dunk because of MJ. Like, or everybody they stuck their tongue out and like tried the turnaround jumpers because of Kobe. Like, I'm just thinking of guys like that who changed the way people looked at basketball. And Steph is making people consider rule changes and like he is revolutionizing the game. And so that's why, to me, it's not just about like, yes, he's put together 2 MVP seasons, and this last year and a half run has been the best we've seen since Jordan. Like, to me, that's why he belongs on the list, because he's a game changer.
But the list is the top 25 best NBA players of all time.
Can you name 25 people that you would rather? Okay, and this is the argument.
But this isn't a one-game pickup thing. Yep. This is best NBA career. This is like, you look at their entire body of work.
Yeah, but so okay, then this is the debate of lists like this: is do you pick somebody who had the best peak? Like, at their peak, they were the best player that you could have, like, possibly wanted? Or are you picking the guy who had 10 to 15 years of greatness?
No, because, I mean, like Tracy McGrady, right? He was one of the best 3 players in the league for, like, probably, 4 or 5 years?
If even that long. Yeah, because
he had so many injuries. Which is already double as long as Steph has. So, would you put McGrady in your top 40? Probably not. So why is Steph 23?
Because again, that for me he's a revolutionary player. Like, he's already, he and Clay are the 2 best shooters of all time.
Steph is, not Clay. You would take him over Ray Allen, Reggie Miller.
No, okay, I guess it's
Steve Nash.
I would take him over Reggie Miller, but not Ray Allen. Yeah. Steve Nash is probably close, but exactly. Steph. Okay, and Steph's on the list, so that's why we were talking about Steph. Let's not talk about Clay, but instantly, like, you would say he's the best shooter of all time, though, right? From a capabilities standpoint.
But is Vince Carter the best dunker of all time?
That's harder to quantify. You can quantify shooting.
I mean, it's not harder to quantify, though, because Steph's not the leading 3-point shooter of all time. So we're judging it on a non-quantifiable.
But he's broken every single season 3-point shooting record there is.
I know, but 1 year spikes, like, so the dude's had an unbelievable 1.5 years.
But do you not think that single season records count for something in history?
It does, but if let's say his career ended tomorrow, because that's what we're making this list off of, right? It's right now. Yeah. We're not projecting, because if we're projecting, he could be, top 5 best player of all time. We don't know. If he did this for another 10 years, he probably would be. But so we're saying right now, and if his career ended tomorrow, you're going to say he had a better NBA career than Kevin Garnett, Steve Nash, Scottie Pippen, Jason Kidd, Elgin Baylor, Kevin McHale. It's like, I just don't think you can do that.
Again, the reason I'm putting him on the list is because of, and this is like, we can talk about Kevin Durant too. My point, I think the way I do these lists is I look at someone who puts together, they're like, I don't know. For me, there's people who have spikes that are otherworldly. And if you have those spikes, you belong somewhere on this list, and that's why Steph is at the bottom of the list. Now, if I really thought he was like, if he put together, like, Kevin Durant's higher because Kevin Durant is the 3rd player as far as like scoring titles. Like, he's had 4 seasons where he's won scoring titles, been the top scorer in the league. So to me, he belongs on the list because he should already be considered one of the greatest scorers the NBA's ever seen. He can put the ball in the basket better than anybody else other than Jordan and Wilt.
Well, he's done it for 8 years.
Yeah, so
and that's the difference is it's 8 times as long as Steph has done it.
Right, but I would say that the reason I have him on the list is because the combination of the incredible otherworldly spike he's had the last 2 years, combined with the fact that he's a game changer, combined with the fact that he's changing the way people are playing. Like, people are literally trying to play basketball differently because of what Steph and the Warriors are doing.
That's not true. I mean,
teams are looking for the kinds of players that can be on the Warriors, that can beat the Warriors, yeah, but that's largely because of Steph.
Other people have talked about this, like Nash's Suns really started the whole thing, and then there have always been these anomaly teams who can do freaky things that other people try to emulate, and then it doesn't work. But Curry's a better version of Nash. Nash did it for 13 years and won 3 MVPs or however long he was in the league for. And so I don't think you can say that Steph has had a better NBA career than the 5 guys you left out.
Well, first off, Steph's about to win his second MVP, which would tie Steve Nash for the amount of MVPs he won. He won 2.
Okay. Well, we're saying ending tomorrow though, so you can't project.
But you can't. But that would only. I mean, you have to be able to assume that he finishes out this season the way that it.
You can't though. He could tear his ACL tomorrow.
But if he were to, would he not win the MVP still?
No, there's 30 games left.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, if it was like
that's
15 games.
Of the season. So I mean, we can wrap up the conversation. The problem I have with it is this is best NBA player, which I think we can both agree translations to best career, right? We're looking at their career.
But now that's where it's subjective. Best career. Because you could talk about like Karl Malone, numbers-wise, probably had a better career than David Robinson, but David Robinson won a championship.
Yeah.
John Stockton had a better career. Like that's why, I have Dwayne Wade ahead of John Stockton. Like John Stockton may have been like, he was the best assist guy of all time, but he never won a championship. Dwayne Wade won 3. So it's like it's a different kind. And Dwayne Wade for 3 seasons was the best player in the game. That's what, to me, if at any point you were the best player in the league, you belong on this list. That's what I think. And like Tracy McGrady, to your point, he was never the best player in the league. He was like a top 3, top 5. But like Steph is the best player in basketball right now.
Okay, well, how do you not put Nash on that list then? Nash was the best player in the league twice.
Yeah, to me though, he like had 3 or 4 years, and this is maybe the same kind of argument that you could make to put Nash in. He was really good, but he didn't become an MVP until like he was in his 30s. And so like he was like 30 and 31 or 32 whenever he won his MVPs. So I don't know, like Steve Nash belongs that's why he's like my first 5 out. He's just outside of that list.
And we could go in circles with this conversation. And it's an interesting conversation to have for like you just straight up say, all right, best 25 NBA players of all time.
Right.
And it's okay, well, you have to balance spike versus longevity. And I get what you're saying because the problem is I think a year and a half is just so short for me in my head compared to like, let's say if it was 3 or 4 years, I'd have a much easier time saying, okay, he had the 3 or 4 best years ever that a player's ever had. Like just straight up. And then I think it's more so like, but I just look at these guys and they all had 10 plus, at the very, basement all-star level years. Yeah. And at the very top, it was top 2 NBA players. So that's where I guess you can go in circles with this conversation all day.
Yeah, and I think, okay, so what it comes back to for me to like kind of finalize why I put him there, and we spent a lot of time on Curry, but there's only 4 or 5 other guys on this list who were, well, maybe more than that. There's probably 10 guys on this list out of 25 who were the best player in the game for at least one season during their career. Uh-huh. And that's why, to me, Steph belongs, he at least deserves consideration.
But you could argue, was he the best player in the league last year? I would have still taken LeBron.
He is
all
right
of last
now.
year, I still would have taken LeBron in one game over Steph.
Yeah, okay.
So you could say he's been the best player in the league for half a year now?
Yeah, but that's still, to me, that's still enough. With how many great players in the league? 2 other guys that are on this top 25 list, at least on mine, are still in the league.
But Paul George last year, right? Paul George he was the best player in the league for the first half of the year. Arguably last year.
Paul George didn't play last year. You mean 2 years ago? Yeah,
it was the 2 years ago when he was starting off as an MVP candidate or whenever it was. It's like there have been dudes who have had like really good half a year, and that's what we're looking at with Steph.
Well, so I guess I'm considering the season already done. That's the way I'm kind of looking at it. And I think you have to look at it like that, in my mind.
But we're only 2/3 of the way through the year, though.
Oh, then, okay, so then play it like if the season ended today, Steph would be the best player in the league, MVP, Warriors are one of the best teams in NBA history.
Okay, I mean, it's still only 1 year of him being like the best. Like you would take him in a 1 game, because I think we can agree on that. The definition of the best player is you have 1 game 7. Who's the first dude you pick?
Steph.
This year it's Steph. Last year I would have still taken LeBron.
Yeah. But I mean, LeBron. I think that gap was still pretty close, though. But like what LeBron did in the playoffs shows you that how valuable LeBron is, because he single-handedly carried the Cavs to the finals and to winning 2 games.
And we'll dive into LeBron later. But I think it's a good conversation to have with top 25. Where do you balance spikes versus longevity?
And that's why I want to. And so I guess I need to say this so we can move on. But Chris Paul, the reason I had to put him in, I couldn't leave him off just because I think he has such an underappreciated career. Because what he's done, I mean, he's averaged like 20 and 10. And like what Steve Nash, like people talk about how great he was, but he never averaged 20 points a game during his career, which is crazy to think about. Like even when he won the MVP.
Is that true?
I would look up the numbers on it. Let me double check.
Okay.
But my point is just like what Chris Paul has done is he's put up the same kind of numbers that Nash did with the same amount of like playoff success or not success, and he's done it well at 6 feet tall. Like he's not a big dude. So anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on with that little part bookmarked. So ESPN's 21 through, here we go with the numbers again, 21 through 16. Is that right? No, 20 through 16. Yeah. 20 through 16.
15 through 20, right?
No.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
This is awful.
It's all good.
We need a producer. Anyone who wants to work for free, get little or no recognition, and help us do our math better should let us know. 20 on ESPN's list, David Robinson. 19, John Stockton. 18, Barkley. 17, Dirk. 16, Karl Malone. Your 20 through 16 was 20, Dwayne Wade. 19, Isaiah Thomas. 18, Barkley. 17, Malone. 16, Dirk. My 20 through 16, Robinson, Garnett, Malone, Barkley, Dirk. I think those are literally all like basically the same. Right. There's not much difference there. So, I mean, was there anything you wanted to hit there? I mean, I'm kind of good, frankly.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. I obviously we put Dirk at 16 each. I put Isaiah Thomas higher because I think during his career, he played in the era with Bird, Magic, and MJ. So he was overshadowed, but he's a 6 foot tall guy who, helped carry the Pistons to a championship.
And if you don't, I'm a Pistons fan, but I wasn't alive during that whole period. If you want a good perspective on how good he was, watch the Bad Boys doc, because it does a good job of showing like the dude went straight up, like Isaiah Thomas went all out, like against the Lakers and against other teams. And it was just like, it was ridiculous. And so if you want a good perspective on Isaiah, if you're our age, then I think that'd be a good doc to watch.
What was it, the 88 finals? Game 7.
Yeah, when they got robbed against the Lakers.
Yeah, he played the entire game on like a basically ankle that was the size of a watermelon. It wasn't that huge, but people talk about his ankle was just destroyed, and he had 25 points in the third quarter of that game. Oh my gosh, like that's a 6 foot tall dude doing that in the era where he was probably the 4th best player in the league because of how many greats were playing, if he was even that high. So I think he deserves to be placed on this list because he won 2 championships when he was playing in arguably the golden age of basketball. So, and then I also with the Steve Nash thing, I looked it up. The most he averaged in a season was 18 point something per game. So obviously he deserves consideration, but that's why I put Chris Paul, because he's had a similar career numbers wise and accomplishment wise to Steve Nash.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And then 15 through 10, honestly, there's probably not much discussion here either. 15, this is ESPN, Moses Malone, Julius Erving, Jerry West, Kobe, and Oscar. My 15, Moses, Julius, Jerry, Oscar, Shaq. Your 15, Moses, Julius, Oscar, Jerry, Hakeem. I guess let's have the Hakeem and Shaq discussion because... I'd see our top 10s are pretty different. Do you just want to scrap ESPNs and just not talk about it?
Yeah, we don't have to. I mean, people can look that up. Yeah.
So let's kind of deep dive into our top 10 real quick. We both have MJ at number 1.
Well, let's talk about that last group you mentioned, because I think the main
I'm just trying to think what the best way to go about it would be as far as top to bottom or bottom to top.
Right. Let's get through this just because we have to. This is the part where it's tough because we didn't really watch these guys play. Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Julius Erving, legends in basketball. Yeah. Oscar played in the 70s, the triple double machine. Like I think people need to look up Oscar Robertson's numbers to appreciate what Russell Westbrook has done and what Draymond have done from a triple-double standpoint. Like, nobody else in history has done this except for Oscar Robertson between those two guys. So that's huge. Jerry West was considered, I mean, he's the logo. He was considered the best shooting guard of all time before Jordan came along. He deserves to be on this list. So, I mean, it's just guys like that don't get as much credit. Julius Erving, he's Dr. J. So, those are people that need to be highlighted that we didn't watch. And I mean, we have them in similar places as ESPN does. The person I left out of the top 10 that I had to because I wanted Kobe and Shaq in the top 10 was Hakeem. And so that's where your argument, that's where we would probably have some kind of discussion.
Yeah, and I think our biggest discrepancy is you have Shaq at 6 and I have him at 11.
Yeah, so the biggest discrepancy, like you said, is Shaq. I have him up at number 6. I left Hakeem out of the top 10. Here's why. Because people forget how Shaq's a goofball, the way the Lakers thing ended, the way his career ended, people I think forget how dominant he was. But for the first 10 years of his career, he was literally unguardable. He led the league in scoring twice in his first 10 years. He won, 3 MVPs? 2 or 3? I think he won, 2 or 3. He led the league in field goal percentage. 6 of the first 10 years he was in the league. And Hakeem Olajuwon, he's playing in the era of Hakeem Olajuwon when he first comes into the league. And his rookie season, he's averaging over 20 a game, like 23. So to me, I just see the way at his peak, Shaq was completely unguardable. Okay, and think about this. This is what sold it for me to put him in the top 10 at number 6. If you think about the last 20 years of basketball, if you name the best duos of the last 20 years, 3 of them have Shaq. D-Wade and Shaq with the Miami Heat, Kobe and Shaq, and then Penny and Shaq with the Magic.
Those are the 3 best duos.
No, I'm not saying those are the 3 best. I'm just saying if you think about like top 10 duos, 3 out of the 10 are going to have Shaq involved.
I don't think Dwayne Wade and Shaq could be up there. Shaq was a corpse when they won that championship.
He was still good. He was good enough to help them win a championship.
But they wouldn't be considered a duo.
They were the 2 best players on the team.
Shaq was the 2nd best player on that team.
If you look at that Miami Heat team, they had no business winning that championship.
Yeah.
But that's my point, though, is at least 2 of the top 10 involve Shaq. And he was a clown. Yeah, he was a goofball, but nobody could guard him. Because literally, okay, think about this. The Hack-a-Shaq rule. It's invented because nobody could stop Shaq. Yeah, he couldn't hit free throws, but we're seeing repercussions, and this goes back to my game changer thought process with putting players in the top 10. He's the kind of guy who changed the game, not in a good way, because he couldn't make free throws. Now it's affecting the game negatively, but he changed the game because he was so dominant that they had to foul him to get him to the free throw line. And now that's what people may use as an argument to make him not as good. But to me, the fact that you had to intentionally foul the guy because otherwise he was going to get 2 points against you is insane. And that's, to me, that combined with his field goal percentage, the way he was a defensive presence, the way he led the league in scoring a couple times, won MVPs, won championships, Shaq deserves to be that high on the list for me.
Yeah, and I can't argue with you on all that. It was just an opinion thing for me. I just thought the other guys above him had better careers. And then we'll go through your 10 through 5. You have Kobe at 10, Timmy at 9, Bill Russell at 8, Wilt at 7, Shaq at 6. I have Hakeem at 10, Kobe at 9, Bill Russell at 8, Tim Duncan at 7, and then Larry Bird at 6. There's not a ton of difference there. We just have mixed and matched a few of them.
So you have Wilt at 4, which we're about to go into the top 5, so I don't want to... But I put Wilt and Bill Russell. And the reason I put them behind Shaq, I think it's another thing, is these 2 guys are considered the best 2 centers of all time, other than Kareem. Kareem, for some reason, I got him and Hakeem mixed up. But I just think, okay, Bill Russell, he was great, but he also played in an era where he was 5 inches taller than the next tallest player in the league. Wilt did too, and I'm just not convinced. I know everyone says Wilt was a freakish athlete who just never cared enough to win a championship. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a millennial and I don't have perspective. But like, if they played now, would they be the guys that we think they are? I mean, I don't doubt that they'd be all-time all-stars.
You can't play that game.
Maybe I can't, but I still think but I'm still thinking as a transcendent talent, if you make all things even, all things equal, I would pick Shaq over those two. Maybe not like for maybe like determination and will to win, you would give it to Bill Russell. But I still think like talent and unstoppability and like his numbers and championships back it up. That's why I put Shaq above those two. And Wilt, just because he never won a championship, although he was like a better scorer and athlete than Bill Russell, that's why he's ahead of him. I still can't pick him up front of Shaq just because Shaq was Shaq, man. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I would change on my list is my top 5. I have Magic at 5, Wilt at 4, LeBron 3, Kareem 2, and Michael 1. I'd probably flip-flop Wilt and Magic at 4 and 5.
Okay.
I don't know. I never saw the dude play or anything like live, obviously, but it was just unbelievable to me. So that's why I put him that high. More so, I guess, probably for a historical thing.
Yeah.
Just because, he put up 100 points in a game, and obviously there's other stuff. But
he averaged like 50 rebounds in a season because he wanted to.
It was ridiculous. And your top 5: Kareem 5, Larry 4, LeBron 3, Magic at 2, and MJ at 1. I think and I tried to balance my LeBron pick, and I was interested to see you put him at 3 as well in the top 5 because I think it was last year maybe where the argument became, is he the best small forward ever? Like him versus Larry. And I think a lot of people said he kind of and the finals was like the final nail in the coffin for me. Like, I know they lost for all the LeBron haters, but the dude was unbelievable. Like he was, even though like the story out came out of the finals, like Steph, Warriors, Andre Iguodala, LeBron was a freak. Like he was, he's like near the tail end of his like prime, probably kind of at the end of his prime. But like that was one of the best I've ever seen him play before. Like the dude had a depleted crap roster, and I think they were up 2-1, right? So he was just ridiculous. And obviously, his finals record isn't, perfect like Michael's, but as far as just best player of all time, the dude's peak has been so long now, and we don't have to get into all his accomplishments, but I think we can get to the point where we can say LeBron's a top 5 NBA player of all time.
Yeah, and there's a whole like storyline with him, and that's why we've talked about we can't wait till we see documentaries about him, because how often in sports do you see somebody with the expectations you have on them when they come into the league actually live up to it? And yes, people can criticize the decision, but if that's the worst thing that LeBron has done, then we should be applauding him, because we've seen peers, and as much as some people hate LeBron, or some people criticize him, it's not like people aren't willing to put out stuff about him if it came up, like negative things. But you've just never seen it. Like, yes, is he arrogant? Yeah, he absolutely is. Is he kind of pompous? Sure. But the way he plays basketball is the way you would hope a superstar would play basketball. From the way he distributes, he's averaged 27, 7, and 7, which almost nobody has done. He's played since he was 18, and when the moment he came into the league, like he was 21, he averaged 30 points a game for an entire season. So LeBron deserves to be. And like you said, last year the finals, that almost did more for his legacy than the ones that he won with the Heat, because of the way he he took over that series. Like, he single-handedly beat the Hawks when Kevin Love was out. I've never seen somebody dictate the game with the way he slowed it down and then rallied the team defensively. It's just he's an impressive guy.
I think it's interesting you talk about, when you were discussing LeBron, you said if the worst thing he's done is the decision. He's the only player we've brought up, like, basically their personal life / decisions they've made off the court.
Right.
And I think that's interesting. One, because he's the only guy in the top, 5 specifically who's played in the weird social media TMZ era.
Yeah.
So obviously, like you said, if the dude was like a crappy person, we'd hear about it.
Right.
And I'm not saying Michael was a crappy person, but the dude was an awful teammate as far as just like, granted, he would win you games, but like, go read the Jordan Rules by I believe Sam Smith wrote that, and it's like the dude was like an awful person.
Not British singing Sam Smith.
No, Chicago Bulls reporter Sam Smith, but the dude was like a crappy teammate, and like I have no apologies saying that. Like, he was like not a good person to his teammates, and I'm not even gonna get into his off-court stuff with the gambling, and I don't know a ton about some of the other stuff, but I've heard like weird like stories and rumors and stuff, and I'm not sure how valid some of them are, but it's like, if LeBron did 1/5 of the things with either his teammates or like the gambling or any of that stuff, the dude would be like, it'd be covered way more, one, because of the way the media landscape is, and that's not either of their faults. It's just a product of which era they were born into. But I just think it's interesting that, and I hope LeBron won't be judged by the decision, because that would be a foolish thing to even put into his resume as far as like a negative. Like you can put his championships as a negative thing because that's on the court. But if you're going to get into that stuff, then you have to be like, well, I don't know. Magic was nicer to his teammates, so should he be number one, or should Larry be number one over, or even LeBron over Michael? Like if we're going to, start talking about the decisions they made off the court. Because, I mean, Michael put his teammates in jeopardy with like his gambling stuff and just being kind of, ridiculous to his teammates in general. So you could say, well, he was selfish. Well, of course he was. It's made him the best of all time. Well, you could, go into a whole circle with all that. If you're going to bring up the decision, then bring up the Michael's issues.
That's true. It's a matter of being fair as far as talking about like both sides of the story, because it seems like there's two parties. It's the MJ, and then there's the LeBron. Like you're either, I feel like you have to be able, both have to coexist, because they're different players. Like LeBron is more Magic than he is Michael, in a lot of ways. And he doesn't have the personality that either of those guys had. Like both of those guys were so polarizing, and that Magic was this friendly, happy, like he was the guy you wanted his face on everything. And MJ was like this ruthless, I'm going to tear your throat out. But he was also, the life of the party. So yeah, I guess I don't know, I'm going off of a rail there, but I think that there's also to go with your point of MJ, there is a storyline of his career that people don't talk about, and that he retires, of course, and he claimed it was for his dad, and I don't doubt that. Like, all I can do is go off what he said, but at the same time, like, all of his gambling stuff was coming up, and a lot of people wonder if David Stern was about to suspend him for the season, or for a large amount of games. So then Michael goes out for a season and a half, comes back in. They lose like in the Eastern Conference Finals that year that he came back. But it's like, so he left at the time he would have been suspended. Like, how different is the way we think about Michael if that comes out, or if he's actually suspended? And to me, like you said, that puts in jeopardy his team, his teammates. Not that you don't, like, he has to be number one. He just has to be. Because I don't feel comfortable putting if Magic doesn't quit basketball because of, having HIV, like, if that doesn't happen, maybe Magic is the best ever. But you can't say that either. And so it's like, if LeBron wins another championship, he's still not better than MJ to me. Maybe he moves up to number two. But yeah, I guess like if you look at the whole picture, MJ has to be number one, but it's also, he's not without flaw. And if anybody who wants to point out things with LeBron, you have to point out the same about Michael. So I agree that point's valid. And our lists are pretty similar. I think when we should talk about Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant. Like, we put Timmy above him. What was your thought process in putting Tim ahead of Kobe? And we both put Kobe in the top 10. So, like, what was your thought with both of those things? Like, you had to put Kobe in the top 10. Timmy's ahead of him.
Yeah, Tim and Kobe, I mean, pretty much the same career as far as, championships, longevity, greatness, all that stuff. But Tim's just been, I guess, a more quiet greatness. And I guess I find that valuable, and maybe it's my personality. I don't know. I value someone who's just great and not over the top and me about it. At the same time, I'm a massive Kobe fan. Like, right as soon as he announced his retirement, I wrote this slobbery piece slobbering all over him, because like Kobe had a lot of influence on me as a basketball fan. So obviously they're both in the top 10 for me, but I just put Tim above him just because it's been sustained greatness for a little bit longer than Kobe. And I just enjoyed watching him play more, and enjoyed the way that, I guess, if we're going to go off of what you talked about, how they changed the game. I mean, I think Tim changed the game as far as defense, offense more than Kobe did, because Kobe did some things better and worse than Michael, but he was, I hate to be so shallow with this. He was MJ 2.0 with with the way he acted, and that's not a bad thing. Like, the dude's a top 10 player of all time in both of our opinions. So, but Tim was just more different, and I just like the way his career arc went and the way it's coming to a slow end rather than Kobe's just kind of weird, some of the weird stuff Kobe had happened with his teammates. Plus, Kobe was kind of a bad teammate for periods of time as well. Now, I know there's guys, like him and Power, great buddies and all that stuff, and I know he has a lot of friends and all that stuff. I'm not saying he's like this friendless freak or whatever, but like the whole Kobe and Shaq thing was a little ridiculous. I think that devalues them both a little bit in my head of how that whole thing ended and the fact that they couldn't just get over it and play basketball together. So that all of those things together is why I have Tim over Kobe.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely, which is why I had to have both of them in the top 10 because their careers are so similar. Like you said, 5 championships, 1 MVP. They both won championships with one coach. Like Kobe's were obviously 7 years apart, but with Phil both times, and Tim's with Pop, and it's spread out over 20 years. Like they played 20 years with the same team, sustained greatness. Both won an MVP, both won 5 championships, both had like one coach in their greatest seasons. The thing I wonder with Kobe is if the Lakers, blows my mind. The Lakers have this appeal, but they haven't been run that well. Because even when Kobe was in his prime, that season he put up 35 a game in 2006, but still didn't win MVP. That season, Kobe had nobody on his team. Smush Parker was his point guard. Like, I just wonder what happens if Kobe has the kind of stability that Tim Duncan has, and that you can't quantify that and make Kobe ahead of Tim because of that. Because Tim has been the quintessential teammate, and when you think of power forward now and how it should be played, Tim Duncan is the guy you think of. And it's the same way with Kobe for us is like that's how we think, shooting guard. Now that's changing. Now you think of more Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, guys like that. So I don't know. It's just I agree with you. They both have to be top 10, but Timmy belongs ahead of him because he shaped the position of power forward, and that his numbers and championships speak for themselves. So
yeah, and I think the top, at least the top 5. You could jumble, 2 through 6 around. Right. But as far as those guys, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a displacement of that within the next 5 years, short of Kevin Durant winning 3 straight championships or Steph in 8 years or whatever it may be, still doing what he's doing now. Yeah. So I think it's with LeBron's career not coming to an end because I'm sure the dude has 5 or 6 really, really good years left. And so maybe that moves him to 2. I don't know. But it just seems, I thought it was appropriate to do this. I guess ESPN made me think of it, but also because LeBron's, I think, fully cemented himself as the top 5 NBA player of all time. And when that happens, it's valuable to go back and reassess your opinions on, the best of the best. So that's why we did this. Do you have any other thoughts before we move on to our last little?
Well, I was curious. Yeah, we'll make this quick. But I was curious. You put Kareem at number 2 and Magic at 5, and like you said, these can be shuffled around. Like you have Larry at 6, and I have him at 4. But I could easily flip him and Kareem. I wouldn't lose sleep over that. But what do you think about putting Kareem at 2 versus someone like Magic, LeBron, or Bird?
I just thought Kareem was really good for a really long time.
Yeah, 20 seasons, 20 plus seasons.
It was ridiculously long, and like I said, all I watch is, hardcore classics with him now, pretty much. Like, that's it. So I see the best of the best, pretty much. But the way I hear people talk about him and his stats and everything, I've always thought he's been a little bit undervalued. So I may have overcompensated by putting him above. I don't think LeBron's the second best player of all time yet. So, 2 through 6 is a little bit, it was hard for me because really all those guys are so close. And I mean that. Like, I think Michael's 1 just because that's the way the narrative's gone too.
Right.
But also, and it's like, you don't have Michael as number, so it's like you have to, I guess, for now. So 2 through 6 was hard for me. And honestly, you could convince me to change that up, my 2 through 6 or whatever, and I'd be fine with it. So, I don't really have a massive justification for putting him at 2. Right. I just sustained greatness.
So it sounds like we have the same thought process with LeBron, just because I wanted to talk about this a little bit more. But with him, it's like we can't justify putting him at 2, mostly because the Miami experiment was almost not a success. Like they went to the finals 4 times, but they only won twice, and they should have won the first year against the Mavs. They really lucked out the third year with the Ray Allen 3, and that was, I guess you can't put luck into it, but we don't feel comfortable putting him at number 2. So number 3 is almost like we want LeBron to be there. What does LeBron have to do to be number 2 or number 1? Can he ever be number 1?
I don't think he can ever be number 1, but why can't he be number 2? And I guess I didn't put him at number 2 because I was scared to for some reason. I don't know why. But has he been a better NBA player than Kareem, Wilt, Magic, and Larry? And you could make arguments he has. I made an argument Kareem had a better career than him. But
LeBron's a 4-time MVP.
Yeah, and
2-time champion.
2-time champion. He's been to the finals 6 times.
He's won scoring titles. I mean, he's been an elite defensive player all the way up till this year, and this year he's gotten better as the season's gone on. So,
I mean, there's really the only chink in his armor is he's lost some championships as opposed to winning all of them like Michael did.
But man, the two Cavalier finals experiences, to me that proves his greatness.
Even the end of the Miami run.
Right.
It's like the dude was on an island. Last year on an island.
Yeah. I mean, you almost can't call that first finals. That was the worst finals team to ever be in the finals.
538 wrote an article about this, and I referenced it in the thing I wrote about LeBron during the finals last year. If you look at all the advanced stats, LeBron's had like 3 or 4 of the worst finals teams ever. Yeah. In like the top 20 or something like that. And especially the first one, but like the end of the Miami run was like up there too, right. And last year's Cavaliers team. So you have to think about that in terms of the best. It's like if LeBron had, and again, you can't do this, but if you place him on other teams, he probably wins. So that's why I don't necessarily value straight up wins and losses in finals as much as other people do. Like the Twitter war, dude, he's 2-4 in NBA finals. It's like, okay, if you're really like just. For those of you who are listening, don't lower yourself to that guy's standards and think about basketball in that minute of a way. Right. You have to think about it more deeply than that. And so that's why, why can't LeBron be at 2? He could be. If someone had him at 2, I'd have no problem with that. I really wouldn't.
So, I guess just to wrap it up, the NBA's top 25 is the top 20 is not hard to debate. It's all pretty straightforward. You can mix and match, but it's all going to come out the same way. The main thing that's interesting to watch, because I think that Kobe and Tim have they're done. You can put them in the top 10. You could argue Hakeem and Jerry West, maybe knock them out, whatever. But at the end of the day, we're wondering about LeBron and his final rank in all-time NBA lore. So this season, if he makes the finals, what is that? 6 straight seasons in the finals? 5 straight? No, it would be 6.
4 with Miami last year.
Yeah, 6. So if he makes it to the finals this year, I would say no matter what happens, does that put him at number 2?
Even if he doesn't, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, dude's the second best player of all time.
It's tough not to say that.
So an alien comes down, right? Let's just extraterrestrial, human, whatever you want to be, comes down. He says, what's key to your culture? You explain culture to him. You explain entertainment, sports. You explain, soccer, NFL, baseball. You get to basketball. You explain, the Celtics and the Lakers are probably the 2 best franchises. Tell me about the best players of all time. It's like you kind of start, and granted, if you ask a dude who's 80 years old, he's going to start with George Mikan and Jerry West. So it's different based off of eras, but tell me, who are the best creatures to play this NBA you guys watch and cheer for? And it's like, you start with Michael. Second, it may be LeBron.
It might be. And if you... Man, because you think about the 25 points in a row against the Pistons in the playoffs a few years ago to win the game. I mean, just things like that he's done that you just don't see other people do. And he's transformed his game. He was the most efficient player in the NBA when he played for the Heat. I mean, that in that 07 team, you got to go back to that because people even talked about, Mo Williams was their second best player. And it's like, no, he wasn't on that team. The second best player was Larry Hughes. It was even worse than you thought. It wasn't Mo Williams. That was the next season. And so that alone to me says, okay, you belong in the top 25. But then when you list, okay, now he won the MVPs, he put up 27, 7, and 7 for his career. He's been an elite defensive player. He might be the second best player of all time.
He's been on the most teams and done the least with the most that I've ever seen. And that I thought was, I'm sorry, yes, the most with the least that I thought was possible. I didn't think it was possible to do what he did last year, to make the final. And you could say, the East was weak. I don't care. Yeah. It's like the dude has done so much with, and he's really gotten messed up by the fact that his home team is the Cavs and the way they run their organization, because he's literally had nothing for so many years as far as, a quality team around him and the way they've run their team. And it's kind of the same thing to a lesser standard of what they did this time when he came back with trading Wiggins. But if you look back at that, you could argue, well, they probably should have kept Wiggins. But and that's what I would tell the alien. It's like the dude's done so much with so little, and he's been the perfect. And you could say the decision. It's like, has there been anyone better who's handled the level of superstardom that LeBron has had? Has anyone ever handled that level of stardom better? And you could say no one's ever had that level of stardom, but there's never been a superstar I've seen who's handled himself as well as LeBron has. Yeah, and so that's another positive notch on his belt.
Yeah. And people would say, "Oh, Tim Duncan," but he's never had the microscope that Kobe or LeBron had on his life. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, there's going to be stories told about him the way it's told about Michael, because it's you think about LeBron and people are going to be like, he was this 7 foot tall, 280 pound guy who ran a 4.4 and he could dunk from the free throw line in a game and shoot threes, and he was the best passer in the history of, we're going to talk about him like that one day. And so it's like, the bottom line of this, I guess, is to appreciate the fact that you're watching something you may never see again. And people want Anthony Davis to be that kind of guy. People want KD to be that guy. We hope Steph Curry or Karl Anthony Towns, who's a rookie this year, we hope they can be this kind of guy. But the thing is, you don't see it always. And we've just watched two guys close out their career who were that, and now LeBron is better than that. So appreciate what you've got.
Definitely. I think that's a good bow on the top 25 NBA players of all time. We realized that was kind of jumbled, but what we want this podcast to be for the most part, we do have some organized stuff that we do, but it's basically just two dudes hanging out talking about basketball, and that's right. What we just did. And a little bit more we don't always hang out with lists and go over them when we're just hanging out, but you guys get the point. So kind of wrapping it up, we were texting last night and you texted me, and just tell them what you texted me about hanging out.
Yeah, so we're watching the Clippers Warriors, and they always show those State Farm commercials, which is kind of funny, like the Hoopers. That's kind of been somewhat funny. But they had one with Chris Paul, and he steps outside, he's eating celery, and he yells something at Kevin Love, who's dropping dimes on the car. He's like, "Where'd you get all those dimes, Kevin?" I just thought for a second, I was like, and this is what I texted you, is Chris Paul a top 5 NBA player hang? And your response was?
No. He would be a stick in the mud, really. And so that sparked a discussion. It's like, let's make our top 10 NBA hangouts. And I want to say this, we're not talking personality style, well, I'm an introvert, so would I really mesh with Draymond that well? He's kind of an extrovert. I'm not getting that deep with this. It's you're hanging out with a bunch of dudes who are the NBA players you would call first. Right. And so I'll just run. I could only come up with 8 before I fell asleep last night.
Yeah, so okay, I'll cut out my last 2. We'll do the top 8. Okay. And you list your 8, I'll list my 8.
So my top 8 is Chris Bosh, just because I thought the dude got kind of mostly faringly messed with for a lot of his years in the NBA. He's just a walking meme pretty much. But for that reason, I feel like he's fun to hang out with. The dude, he's been around a long time in the NBA, so we'd have great stories. And I feel like he's just kind of a calm dude.
Okay, I appreciate that, because Chris Bosh is an underrated player and seems like a cool guy. I actually almost put him on my list. Can I say real quick too, top 5 used to be Blake. Blake used to be top 5, but now if we hang out and he has a couple of drinks, he has a rum and coke or a fuzzy navel that doesn't sit with him well, he hasn't had anything to eat yet, he breaks his fist on my face, and I don't want that. So Blake is no longer top 5. But number 8 for me is the Lopez brothers. Robin and what's the other one? Brooke. Yeah, I would love to. They seem like fun-loving guys, I bet. And they're twins. They're not quite the Morris twins as far as how twinsy they are, but these guys, I feel like they know how to have a good time. And plus, they live in New York, so I'd probably be in New York when I hang out with them. So that'd be cool.
All right, 7 is JJ Redick for me, and not that he's a crazy dude or anything, but I've just heard interviews with him, and he sounds like he'd be fun to have a basketball conversation with, so that's the only reason he's at 7.
That's a good call. He's next on my list, but 7 for me is Hezonja. Mario Hezonja plays for the Orlando Magic, so he's nobody knows him very well, but from everything I've heard, this dude is like J.R. Smith 2.0. But crazier off the court, because J.R. Smith, for all of his craziness on the court, is not a bad guy. Hazonia might be crazy, and like I feel like he's the guy you hang out with that you just get into. Like he's the guy that you would end up on like a hangover kind of movie with, where like you wake up and you have no idea what's going on. Not that like I drink enough for that to even happen ever, but he just seems like he would be the guy that you like walk into a place and you're like, holy crap, what is Hazonia doing right now? So
did you see the video of Rob Gronkowski belly dancing on the stage?
Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly. That's fantastic. At 6, I have Kobe. Not that like going out on the town with Kobe would be any fun, like in by 7 kind of thing, but but I just feel like talking to Kobe would be really cool if I could keep up with him and like not be intimidated the entire time.
That's a good like basketball purist decision right there. I appreciate that. That's why I picked number 6 for me is JJ Redick for the same reason you listed. The thing I appreciate about him is he's always been honest about the Clippers. Like people ask him like, how good are the Clippers? How far can they go? He doesn't go, well, like we're gonna compete, and no, he's like, honestly, we don't think we're good enough to beat the Warriors, but like we think we've got something special. So like that's really, I appreciate his honesty, and he's doing actually a podcast for Adrian Wojnarowski with the Vertical, their new thing. So he does a podcast for them, and he seems like an interesting guy. He's definitely not Hazonia, but fun conversations, I think.
5 is Paul Pierce, and I really had to. I'm not sure if I regret this one or not, like because 50% chance he's just like this weird, like kind of old dude, and the other 50% chances that you get some great basketball stories.
Right.
And like, dude, could you really not walk when they wheeled you back onto the court?
That made me hate him for a solid like 4.5 years until I forgot about it. Man, I could not stand that. No, okay, that's a good call. Mine is similar. Okay, it's an either or. Is that fair? Because I wanted an old guy. Vince Carter or Dirk. Because Vince Carter, like, just because he was my favorite player growing up, him and like AI were like my favorite guys. So I would have loved to just talk with Vince. And I just watched an interview with him with Steve Smith that was pretty interesting. So I would love to just talk to Vince Carter because he seems like a guy who cares about more than basketball. And then Dirk, like, because the more I read about and the more I like watch documentaries on him and learn about Dirk, the more I'm like, this guy might be the most interesting man to ever play basketball. So, but you have more on that later. So
yeah, at 3 I have Russ. I think.
Oh, we skipped 4.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have Steph. Just because I mean he just seems kind of cool. Like all the social media stuff with him and his wife, and they seem like they're. Steph would be my double date choice. I think I can say that. Like all these other guys, I'd be kind of scared to go on a double date with. Like Draymond, I have no idea what he would do. Right. Or like Paul or Kobe or JJ. But Steph, I feel like I could like go to like Outback with him and his wife and with Katie, and like it would just be really cool. We could get done by 7. Maybe go to Starbucks or some downtown coffee shop and hang out for a little bit. Yeah. They could talk about Pinterest. I could flirt with Steph about basketball, and it would just be fun. You're
just chilling in a living room. By the end of the night, it's 11:30. You guys are like, man, better head home. But it's been like a memorable night, just hanging out at the Outback, and that's good. That's good. For 4 and 5, I went the opposite direction. Andre Iguodala and Draymond, like they have to come together because they're on the same team. Because first off, I've heard that Andre Iguodala is like the best teammate ever, and he's just like the most fun-loving guy ever. So I'd want to hang out with him. But then Draymond, because Draymond is like, he's not Hazonia in that he's crazy, but he's like the guy that sets up all the parties. Like that Draymond is a guy who texts everybody like, hey, what you doing tonight? Like, so I just want to hang out with them because I feel like that would be a good time.
Plus, I feel like you need Andre Iguodala to calm Draymond down.
Right.
Like he would get so hyped at a party that you'd be scared, but like Andre Iguodala would just like kind of like come up and whisper to him and like things would be cool.
Right. And that's my thing is like, Andre is the guy who can have a good time. He's the guy who's able to have a good time but not lose his stuff. And like Draymond might be the other way. So you're right. That's a good call.
Number 3, I have Russ. Good old Russ West, just because he's cool on the court, but then all the like the social media / commercials he's in, he seems like he's just kind of fun. I don't really, not much more deep than that. He just seems like he's kind of fun to hang out with.
Yeah, for 3, I have Drummond. Your boy, just because the more interviews I've seen of him and the way he reacted in the dunk contest, he just seems like he would be. He's like where this is probably where I would have had Blake before, because he just seems like a normal dude as far as like he seems like he enjoys a good time. Like, he seems like he's just funny. He's fun. He's not like Shaq to where like he's unbearably like he's always trying to be the center of attention, but he just seems like the kind of dude where he just like wants to make up secret handshakes with people, and like he's just a nerd, like kind of like a dork, but would be fun to hang out with. Because you watch the dunk contest and the dude's like, by like the third dunk, he was like, I don't even want to be in the dunk contest. I just want to watch. And like he missed his dunks, but he didn't look embarrassed at all. He just didn't care. So that's why I'm like, that you can tell a lot from stuff like that. So
yeah, that's good. At 2, I have Dirk for the reasons you said, but he's a soccer fan. He just seems hilarious. Like I have never seen a Dirk interview or anything that was said bad about Dirk or anything at all. And he just seems like he'd be fun to hang out with.
So then what all that said is his like famous basketball coach coming with you? Have you like read enough? Like,
vaguely, I vaguely know. I've heard interviews where they talk about him. No, I just want Dirk. Okay, cool. I don't want to have to like kind of ask questions about this dude. Like, so like, how long have you guys known each other? I don't want to go through that whole thing. Just be like, Dirk, so tell me what it was like playing with Steve Nash, or like tell me what it was like competing against Team USA and all that crap. So, and then we could talk about, soccer and Bayern Munich and all that stuff later on.
Right. I think the common thread that we have with all of these people, because one of the main flaws of basketball people who are like longtime basketball players, what's just something I see, and it's almost something you have to be good at it, is you almost take yourself too seriously. Mm-hmm. And I kind of sense that with LeBron, which is why he's not on this list. Like, he almost takes himself too seriously. He seems like he can't joke around. So yeah, but like Dirk seems like the kind of guy you could just hang out with and like, go bowling, and he'd be fun to hang out with. So
real quick before you go to yours, I think the perfect example of what you're talking about is, I told you this before, but there was a while, I think it was this season, when Dirk got stuffed by the rim. He just didn't jump high enough, and it's hilarious for a 7-foot guy to get stuffed by the rim. And he retweeted the vine of him doing that with the caption like, "Yo, the rim was 12 feet high." It's like there are so many dudes who wouldn't do that because they'd be so embarrassed about that and like so insecure about it. But Dirk's just like, he's just joking around. Like, he got stuffed by the rim and was totally cool with it. He's self-aware, and that's what would be fun to hang out with.
So first I was hesitant to put Russ at 1, but I think like I'm comfortable with that. I just gave away my number 1, but number 2 is Steph. And for the same reasons you listed, they seem like the quintessential double date couple. You could do the whole 9 with the movie and the Outback which people go to Outback for double dates. Is that a thing? But anyways, so yeah, they just seem like down to earth, and maybe they're not. Maybe like their Instagram is a sham, but they seem like they do freaking dub smash on their Instagram. Like they seem like they have a life outside of being a basketball family. So, and plus like between the stories he could tell of like, I was a 4-year-old when my dad played for the Nets, or the Raptors, and like I played basketball against Vince Carter. Like stories like that, I just want to be able to hear. Like, what was it like being a 6-year-old playing against Vince Carter? It's like just having fun, growing up in that atmosphere. So that combined with what he's doing now, it's pretty cool.
What if Steph's whole social media thing with his wife is a sham, and that's just their marketing campaign to look relatable?
There's like a 25% chance that is the way it is. Maybe more than that. So I don't know.
I really hope not, because then the Outback thing's just going to be kind of weird at this point. Like they're going to look down on us for wanting to split the check and all this stuff. Okay.
But to go along with that, don't you feel like with some of these guys, like, because sometimes you look at them and you're like, I know that this guy isn't nice to everybody, but don't you feel like if he just got to know me, we could totally go on a double date? Like if you guys just gave me a chance.
Maybe, I don't know.
No, that's almost how you feel with like the popular girl in high school. Like, if she just knew me, then she would want to date me. And like that's how I feel about Steph sometimes. I'm like, dude, and Kristaps Porzingis, like if you knew me, man, you'd want to hang out. Like, I'm a fun-loving guy.
That's a really good way to put it. Number 1 for me is Draymond. I don't think I could get along with him as well as I could with guys like, Steph, Russ, or Dirk, but I'm just in awe by him as like a social and like from a social and like personality aspect. Like I'm just fascinated with him. So maybe not hang out with him, but maybe be a fly on the wall and just like watch him do his thing. Like what is he, does he like brush his teeth in the morning, or is he like as soon as he gets up just like 0 to 100 he's like has metal music playing in his house? Like I'm just fascinated with him from when he wakes up to when he goes to bed. I just feel like he's such an interesting dude.
So you saying you like want to be part of like a group of 6 that sleep over at Draymond's house and
Yes.
like hang out with him the rest of the day after that.
There's not like the weird pressure of being one-on-one, because I don't know how I would handle that. Like, I'm sure he's a normal dude, but just from everything I can tell, he's like crazy intense.
Yeah.
A group of 6 is perfect because there's enough of a personal buffer there to where like I can, like meet him and like, say what's up and like converse occasionally, but I'm not like pressured to keep up with him. That's perfect.
Like Kevin Hart is hanging out with you guys and like a few other guys. Like that's kind of like you got you and Drake, Kevin Hart, Bill Simmons, like you guys just hang out and sleep over.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. That's fair. My number one, like I said, is Russ. And just because he obviously has this like on-court persona that's like similar to Kobe's, where he's just super intense and competitive. But from everything else you see and read about him, that's not the way he is as a person. He's super charitable. Like he donated tons of money to UCLA as if they need it. But he's a generous guy. He has his own foundation. He seems like a fun-loving. Like there was a documentary on Kevin Durant that he did when he was rehabbing from his foot injury last summer. Super interesting. And like Russ makes fun of Kevin Durant for all of his tattoos a couple times in the video. Like Russ is in it when they're training, which by the way, they're running up this like 100-foot 45-degree incline and then running back down in sand. It's like sand. They're running up it to train, which is insane. But Russ like makes fun of Kevin Durant's tattoos, and I like that. Just makes me love you so much more because you have a sense of humor about that, and he must be like anti-tattoo guy. But I just think that he'd be the kind of guy who'd be fun to hang out with, who seems like a real dude, but is also like a successful guy, not like someone who's just like looking to have a good time but doesn't have any purpose. So I don't know. Seems like a good guy. Seems like a good hang.
I think that's a pretty solid list. We didn't put as many crazy people in here as others might, like Boogie or whatever, but I think it's a solid list of just top 10 NBA or top 8 NBA hangouts. So did you have anything else you wanted to touch on before we end our NBA Babble Fest?
No, shout out to the guy at Racetrack who gave me a free drink today. Shout out to our unofficial sponsor.
Whoa. So you went to Racetrack instead of the mobile hop-in?
No comment. Listen, just sometimes convenience, like it's right on the way. Like I take a left out of my apartment and then on the right is a Racetrack. So I just hopped in there to get a drink. Speaking of hop, the mobile hop in down the road. It's our unofficial sponsor. I'm just trying to segue out of this so I don't look like I'm helping. But you know what? If they gave me the drink for free, then technically I'm not really helping our competitor.
That's true.
Technically I'm taking money from them.
That's true. You're helping the mobile hop in.
So there you go. You're welcome, mobile hop in. We're already doing favors for you.
That's true.
So anyways, yeah, again, shout out to the unofficial sponsor of the Unprofessionals Pod, the mobile hop in off of Trickham Road and Arnold Mill. We thank you for not knowing that we exist and for giving us Big Texas's and Monster coffee drinks, which is what I used to buy there when I was a teenager.
That is a good way to put it. And you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Unprofession and unprofession.com. We have some good stuff coming up for you guys on the site, so be sure to follow us and check out the site for Nathan's triumphant return on the Warriors and how they make some other NBA teams look dysfunctional, even though the other NBA teams that he discusses are actually really good teams. So, and I just wrote something on Spotlight, so you guys can check us out. And
do you have anything coming this week? Any new stuff?
Yes, I have. I did like a little NBA mid-season, even though it's a little after the mid-season thing that I'm going to post this week. And then we had a piece that we wrote together, just a discussion on critiquing, basically, I can't remember the way I put it, but just basically critiquing like one-dimensional entertainment and whether it's valuable or not. So we got some good stuff coming up. So check us out and subscribe on iTunes, all of that crazy good stuff. So
but I'm finally gonna, you're gonna be shocked by this, I'm finally doing the Russ article.
Really?
I've changed the way I'm doing it, but I've got a 5-part thing on Russell Westbrook coming out. Basically a defense of Russell Westbrook.
You're putting this on the wavelengths
it's on record
now. Okay.
But I've changed the way I'm doing it. It's going to be because I've realized brevity is not my strong suit. So I'm attempting to do a 5-piece thing, 400 words each piece, to kind of give you. I want to consolidate. Let's get to the point. It's a defense of Russell Westbrook in 5 pieces.
That's good. So coming summer 2017. Nathan's 5-part piece on Russell Westbrook. So thank you for listening. Check us out on all the social media sites and have a good one.